The Iranian people have been living under multiple sanctions for the past 40 years. The US sanctions became extreme in 2010 and caused a lot of harm to ordinary people. But in 2016, after lengthy negotiations, the US and the Iranian state signed the Iran deal, or the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. This lifted some of the sanctions, but in 2018, Trump unilaterally withdrew from the JCPOA and imposed the harshest sanctions in the history of sanctions on Iran. Sanctions have devastated the Iranian economy and have made life extremely difficult for the Iranian people, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Sanctions are not only crippling the Iranian economy, but they are maiming and killing innocent Iranians. Sanctions are not nonviolent alternatives to war. Sanctions bring great suffering to ordinary citizens and are war by another name. In the 90s, even before the US war in Iraq, more than 500,000 innocent Iraqi children died as the direct result of the sanctions on Iraq. The sanctions did not make Saddam Hussein a democratic president. In fact, repression increased under the sanctions in Iraq. We know what sanctions do. They only harm people, not the governments. They do not bring freedom or democracy. They bring more repression, more hunger, more disease, and more violence. Sanctions are a form of collective punishment. The Iranian people, especially the most vulnerable segments of the Iranian population, are paying the price. The quality of air in Iran has reached dangerous levels because of substandard homegrown petroleum. The fuel that is produced in Iran contains extremely high levels of carcinogenic toxins. The rate of cancer in Iran has skyrocketed as the direct result of the sanctions. Access to cancer medications and other life-saving medicine is minimal, if not impossible. Access to life-saving medicine and medical equipment to fight the coronavirus has been extremely hard. Even if on paper a limited amount of medicine can be imported, pharmaceutical companies are scared of being punished and therefore do not sell medicine to Iran. And even if they are willing to do so, the financial institutions such as the Iranian Central Bank that have to process these transactions are subjected to sanctions. The high rates of inflation and the drop in the value of Iranian currency has made life unaffordable for millions of Iranians who cannot afford to buy food and medicine. Sanctions hurt poor people, homeless children, single mothers, refugees, and people who live in impoverished provinces. Sanctions are not designed to strengthen the Iranian people's fight for freedom and social justice. They only set back the gains of the social movements of the past 40 years and make dissent impossible. Sanctions are killing the Iranian people and they need to be stopped. March 21st is Nowruz, the Iranian New Year. Millions of Iranians will not be able to celebrate, not only because of the pandemic, but because they cannot afford to buy food and clothes for themselves and their families. We want a better future for the Iranian people. Let year 1400 be the year that we make the US politicians lift the sanctions on the Iranian people. Join us by posting the hashtag #NoSanctionsOnIran on your social media.